No. I know it's small, but beggars can't be choosers, right? Lucky we got anything. And actually, I'm very happy with it. It'll kind of, trying to do this without a map is hard because it's hard to give people an image of what you're talking about and where you're talking about just by using some of the names that they have because nobody's familiar with them. And it's also hard to put things together. So if I just read this and didn't take the time to explain how they work together and how they came together, I just don't think you'd get as much out of it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to start out tonight. We're on Judges 11:15. And like Pastor said, we're talking about Jephthah. And if you remember from last week, Jephthah grew up. His mother was a prostitute. And he was ostracized by his family, by his clan, and ultimately by the tribe. And he was pushed out, forced to leave, and go live in the land of Tob. And then when things got rough for the Israelites, they went to him and asked him to come back because he was a great warrior. And they needed a warrior. So that's where we're at tonight. They went to him. They've told him we need a warrior. The Ammonites are waging war against us, and we need somebody to lead our army. And he agreed to it. And so they agreed to have him, and he agreed to do it. And that's kind of where we're at now. Okay. So, 11:12 through 15. Then Jephthah sent a messenger to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What do you have against me, that you have come to me to fight against my land?" And the king of the Ammonites answered the messenger of Jephthah, "Because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." Jephthah again sent a messenger to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus say Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites." And like I said, that's hard to understand unless you break it down and kind of show what's going on here and what they're talking about. So first of all, he sent a message to the king of the Ammonites. And what do you have against me? So he's asking, what right do you think you have to our land? What justification can you give me that you want to go to war with us? Many people are going to be killed. The battle will be a hard one. So how are you justifying this? And the king of the Amorites answered and said, "Because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to Jordan. Now therefore restore peaceably." So this is the land he's talking about here. Here's the Arnon River, and it's going to go up to the Jabbok River to right here's the Jordan River. So he's talking about this piece of land right here. That's what the big argument is about. And this is the land of the Ammonites right now out there. So just so everybody knows the piece of land that the argument is about. And Jephthah again sent a messenger to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus saith Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Amorites." So here Jephthah is about ready to give the king of the Ammonites a history lesson. The king of the Ammonites is talking about a time, not today, not now, not currently, but he's talking about a time that was 300 years prior, when the Israelites had left Egypt during the Exodus and came up here. So Judges 19 tells us, Israel then sent a messenger to Sehath. Oops, I'm on the wrong page. I am very sorry. 16. Okay, through 18. But when they, meaning the ancestors, came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. So they started out down here in Egypt, and they came up here, and they ended up in Kadesh, which is just off the map down in this area down here, but it's in this area right here. So we're talking about the arguments here, but this is where when they left when they left during the Exodus and came up through the wilderness, they ended up over in Kadesh. So Israel then sent a messenger to the king of Edom, saying, please let us pass through your land. So Edom refused Israel passage due to their historical resentment and political self-interest. The king of Edom feared that the large number of Israelites, estimated to be around 2 million, would threaten their security and Edom's economic control over the trade routes. And Edom's refusal was also to show them force, as they sent troops to prevent Israel from crossing into their territory. A clear demonstration of military strength, the king sent troops to confront Israel, indicating the seriousness of his commitment to preventing them from passing. And Edom worshiped their own false gods, which were in opposition to the God of Israel. This spiritual rivalry contributed to the unwillingness to allow safe passage. So we wonder now, the king of Edom, you say 2 million people, but this is his land, and the Israelites show up, and there's 2 million of them. So he's afraid that if he lets them onto basically their land, their nation, their region, that they're going to be a strain on their resources, their water, their food, their animals, and everything else, and then they may not go. And they have a different culture, and they serve a different gods than the Israelites do. So nothing was meshing. That's why he said, no, we don't want you to come through here. And so then, I keep losing my place. And so then they went up and they went to Moab. So they left Edom, and then they sent the king to Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Okay, Scott, could you please read Numbers 14:23?
Yep. It's not one of the ones you gave me, Joe.
Oh.
Okay, but I'm going to have it for you in seconds. Okay, Numbers what?
14:23, unless I wrote it down wrong. Yeah.
And I will, believe me, I've got an outside. Okay, I'll even face you guys. Numbers 14:23. Not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see me.
Scott, that's the wrong one. Deuteronomy 2:4-6. Sorry.
Oh, that's one you gave me.
Yeah, that's one I gave you. But that was a good job. I mean, I appreciate it. It was good.
Warm me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Give the people these orders. You are about to pass through the territory of your relatives, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. They will be afraid of you, but be very careful. Do not provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land, not even enough to put your foot on. I have given Esau the hill country of Seir as his own. You are to pay them in silver for the food you eat and the water you drink.
All right. So, and then when they went to the Moabites, they turned them down too for pretty much the same reason. It says here that in the same way, the Moabites were descendants of Abraham's nephew Lot, and they also possessed land set aside for them by God. Scott, could you read Deuteronomy 2:9?
Then the Lord said to me, do not harass the Moabites or provoke them to war, for I will not give you any part of their land. I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession.
All right, thank you. So when we talk about this, and I told you here, the Israelites are down here in Kadesh. So a lot of people wonder, well, why didn't they just come through? Well, they tried. They come through Edom, but they said no. and they couldn't go through Moab because they said no. And so they couldn't come this way because the Philistines and the Canaanites were up here, so they were kind of stuck down there. And if they would have came through here and these people would have resisted them, they would be going against God's command for them not to start trouble with these people. So they couldn't go here, they couldn't go here, and they were told to go this way, and they did not go that way. So now it says, and they sent also to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Now, how long did Israel remain at Kadesh? You know, that's one thing that's kind of, when you read that, it just, okay, they remained at Kadesh. But they remained at Kadesh. That's where they spent their 40 years. They spent 40 years down here. And people wonder, well, why did they spend 40 years? Why didn't they just go around? Because they couldn't just go around because God did not allow them to go through these other areas. So they were, when it says they wandered, and they wandered a lot, they wandered because there was no way to get where they needed to go unless God created a way for them to get there. So when you read your Bible and it talks about them wandering and why they just didn't go another route, it wasn't because the leader had one leg shorter than the other and he kept going out and going in circles. That's not why they wandered. They wandered because God did not open up a path for them to get there yet. So, let's see. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and around the land of Moab and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. So basically what they did is they did go around. They went around here, which they called the wilderness, and they went past these guys' territory. They didn't go in. They didn't violate God's command for them to stay out of there. And then they went up to the Arnon, and they camped here, outside of the property that would have belonged to the Moabites. They did not go into there. They just camped along the Arnon River, but not inside their territory. So that's where they're at this point. And that's why Jephthah has given them this lesson, because he wants them to understand that, you know, they didn't violate their land. They didn't do anything that they weren't supposed to do at this point. So at great inconvenience, the Israelites went around Edom and Moab to the east of their region to avoid conflict. And so now here, Jephthah continues his history lesson. Israel then sent to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, "Please let us pass through your land to our country." Yes, ma'am.
Back in Deuteronomy 2:9, if God said those people were their brothers, then how were there already Israelites there that they had to go around before they got there? I thought they were only the Israelites that came from Egypt were the only ones.
Well, you got to understand that in the beginning, all these people were related. That's why we went through family and clan and then tribe. Because way back at the time of Noah, and even before that, these people were related. But their clans ended up separating into other tribes, and that's how we got these, because some were blessed and some were not blessed. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. I didn't really understand your question. If somebody could help me out.
If the people that came from
Go ahead, Pastor.
So I think the reference is to the descendants of Esau that are in the land. Esau was a brother of Jacob.
Yeah, they were twin brothers.
Yeah. So I think that's the reference when in Deuteronomy 2 talking about brothers, talking about not between the 12 tribes, but between Jacob and Esau.
so was Esau Jewish.
Yeah, they're brothers.
Esau was the son of Abraham.
So I don't understand how the Jews that were coming from Egypt and on their way north, how come there were already Jews there that they were passing by? I thought everybody was in Egypt.
They're not referring to Jews. I think they're referring to the descendants of Abraham as the brothers of Jacob.
And see, if I could just point this out, they weren't called Jews at that time, because Jews are from Judah. That's where that term comes from. And here they're going to be just called Israelites because that is their tribe. And these, like I said, they all have a common ancestor, but they're from different tribes and different clans. So they wouldn't have been called Jews unless they were from Judah. And Pastor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Judah was in existence at this time.
No, not as such. And,
Yeah.
in verse 2:9, or Deuteronomy 2:9, it also says that the Moabites among them were the descendants of Lot, who was also the nephew of Abraham. So it is relative. I think that's the reference.
Yeah, and that's why I want to say these guys, that's why last week we talked about the family versus the clan versus the tribe. Because as we go on, the families broke up into clans, and then the clans would eventually evolve into different tribes. But based on what their beliefs were and their blessing from God or not, go ahead, Harry.
The 12 tribes of Israel followed God. The sons of Esau and all those relatives had other gods.
Yep.
So they were related, but spiritually they were against them.
Go ahead, Mario.
So just to clarify, does that mean all the Israelites that were in Egypt were not the only Israelites? There's still already Israelites up there?
Well, they were Hebrews. At that time they were Hebrews. So, yeah. And that's why, when they were all in Egypt, they were all Hebrews, but they were from the same ancestry. They all had the same ancestry. And then as they came up here and they broke into tribes, like he said, there were 12 tribes. There were the 12 tribes of Israel, the Israelite tribes. But there were other Hebrews. There were other tribes. There were other things, but they weren't blessed by God. They went other ways, and they worshiped other gods, even though they had the same ancestry. So, and I know it's kind of hard to find that or define and understand. That's why I wanted to break it down a little bit, but it is hard to understand. That's why without this map, it would probably be impossible to understand, because you don't know the difference between these different areas. And when they start talking about these spaces, why are they pertinent? Why are they valuable? And it's because that's where these different people ended up. And it'll come a little bit clearer as we go on and as we get more into the story. Go ahead, Scott.
Abraham basically had two kids in rivalry with each other, Ishmael and Isaac. They're the ones, they're all related in that area, basically, to Abraham. So his two kids started different tribes, basically. And the ones that we call the Israelites are from Jacob. So that's specific to become the nation of Israel. The other ones became the other nations in the area.
That's where we get our Arabs.
That's where we get our Arabs from.
And that's why they're at war with each other.
Ishmael actually would be like the father of the Arabs. Just like Abraham, Isaac
And
would
still
be
today,
among all the Israelites.
between Israel and Iran and Iraq,
Yeah.
it's the same battle.
Yeah, it's the same peoples, only 3,000 years difference. But it's the same people. It's the same. Like I said, everybody has the same ancestry. They all came from the same thing. But after they left, the family split, became different clans, became different tribes. And these are the different tribes. And they had different religious beliefs. They had different political beliefs. They had different, some were farmers, some worked metal worker. They were different. And they had different culture completely, some of them. And they worshiped different gods. Like I said, these Amorites, they worshiped the God, and they did like child sacrifice and all that stuff. And that's why God told Israelites, don't let these people into your families. Don't let these people, because if you let them into your family, they bring with them all these different beliefs from these gods and these different ideas. Go ahead, Scott.
The 12 tribes come specifically from Jacob. He had 12 kids. Those 12 kids became the 12 tribes of Israel. The other groups came down via the other side with Ishmael
Because remember, God blessed Jacob, and then he changed his name to Israel. And that became, and then his children became the 12 tribes of Israel, the Israelites. And so that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. And I know there's a lot there, and I didn't want to get too deep into it because it just gets kind of confusing sometimes. But it's important. It's important that we kind of understand this so we understand the stories. Because go ahead, Harry.
I find it interesting that God told the Israelites, you can go through the land, you're not going to possess any of it, any food and any water you'll pay for. But why didn't he tell the kings of those areas that these people were going to pass through, they're not going to cause you any harm, and they will actually be an economic boon to you, but you're getting sold.
I can answer that question, I believe. Okay, so the shortest route for the Israelite people to get to the promised land was right through here. But when God gave them the opportunity, remember they were afraid of the Philistines and the Canaanites because they saw that they were giants in the land. So God told them, hey, don't go that way. So then that's when God said, now I'm going to keep you. That generation could not go to the promised land, not because it was a mystery how to get there. It's not because it was so far they couldn't get there. It was an 11-day walk for these people that turned into 40 years. The reason God didn't let them go there is because they were disobedient and they were unfaithful. So that's why he didn't tell these kings, because he didn't want them to end up here yet. That whole generation passed away before he allowed the next generation to go in. So, ready to move on? Yeah. All right. So, this is the gate that God is going to open for them. But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. So King Sihon at this point had this land here. This belonged to Sihon. So God then, the Israelites didn't attack him. They attacked the Israelites. And God gave them, the Israelites, the victory. So, and the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hands of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites, okay? The Amorites. The Sihon and that were the Amorites in here, not the Ammonites that were out here. So, and that's sometimes when you read that becomes confusing because they're so close. But he gave the land of the Amorites, not the Ammonites. And they inhabited that country. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to Jabbok and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So now, after that battle, Jephthah's telling the king of the Amorites, after that battle, God gave this to the Israelites. Now the Israelites go up to the Jordan River on the east side. They go out to the wilderness. They go south to the Jabbok River, and they go north to south to the Arnon River. So they got here to here and here to here. That's what they won in that battle. That now belongs to the Israelites, and the Israelites are trying to get over here into the Promised Land. So that's where they're at. Yes?
What's the scale on it for
1/10% of an inch equals 3/4 of a. I have no idea. Bottom left. Okay, 0 equals 30 miles, so this would be 30 miles. I guess I should look at the map before I say that. Yeah, this is 30 miles. This would be a 30-mile radius. Okay? Yeah, you know, this area that they're talking about and fighting about right here, that's why when they say they wandered for 40 years, you know, they weren't that far away. You know, they estimated it would take 11 days to get there from Kadesh or wherever they were. So Go ahead.
Isn't it true that Israel is technically bitten Oregon 10 times?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right. Thank you, Harry. All right. So they took all the territory of the Amorites from the Yarden to the Jabbok to the wilderness of Jordan. So then Jephthah asked the king of the Amorites a very important question. And this is verse 23. Now, since the Lord, God of Israel, has driven the Amorites out before his people Israel, what right have you to take it over? Will you not take what your God Chemosh gives you? Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we will possess. So in other words, what he's saying is, you need to keep what your God gave you, and we'll keep what our God gave us, and we don't need to fight about this. Doesn't that seem fair? You keep what your God gives you, we'll keep what our God gave us. And remember, this is 300, they're talking about 300 years prior. So for 300 years, this is verse 26, for 300 years, Israel occupied Heshbon, Aroer, and the surrounding settlements, and all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you retake them during that time? So he's saying now, for 300 years, Israel has occupied all this space, and the Amorites haven't said anything. Why now are you coming up and making claim to this? It's been multiple generations since Israel has occupied the territory, over 300 years. Even if Israel had wronged the Amorites, what Jephthah is saying, hey, the statute of limitations should be over on this. I mean, this is 300 years. We've been in this area. We've settled it. We've built settlements and villages all over here, and our people have occupied this for 300 years. So, God gave it to us, and we take claim to it. And he's saying, well, why didn't you try to take it back during all these 300 years? And Jephthah here is simply telling the king, basically, I can see that you're kind of fabricating this claim to the land, trying to make it appear as you have a reason to justify this battle and taking our land from us. Which tells us, you can be right in an argument, and right can be on your side, and you can make a good argument and a good presentation. You can use good discretion and good judgment, but that doesn't mean the others will agree with you or respect you or even appreciate what you've said or done. And Romans 12:18 tells us, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceable with all. So that's our direction. But even Paul realized that even though we do all this stuff and you make a good argument and you're right and right is on your side, it doesn't always mean things are going to go your way. And Jephthah is discovering that right now, that even though everything he's telling him is true, even though it's correct, even though they have no legitimate right to the land that they're trying to take, it doesn't matter, because the Amorites are going to do whatever they're going to do. So Judges 11:27, Jephthah says, I have not wronged you, but you are doing me wrong by waging war against me. Let the Lord, the judge, decide the dispute this day between the Israelites and the Amorites. So he's saying, I made my argument. You're not listening. Nothing's going to change. Nothing has changed. So let's let the Lord decide this dispute. But the king of the Amorite did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah. He crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there he advanced against the Amorites. Okay, we talked about the 12 tribes of Israel. This area up here to the north belongs to the tribe of Manasseh. This would be Gad, where the Gileadites live, and down here would be the tribe of Reuben, down here. So he's just saying, when he talks about he crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah, that's what he's talking about down in here. Can't remember where Mizpah is down here, but right here. From there, he advanced against the Amorites. So when it says that the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah, what he's saying is God has now endorsed Jephthah to be the deliverer of the Israelites. He's already decided that Jephthah's going to win this battle. He's chosen Jephthah to lead the troops, and he's going to lead them in the battle. The war is going to start now. So then let's go to Judges 11:30. This is where the story kind of makes a turn. So far, Jephthah was doing all right. He was doing what he needed to do. He was being a strong leader. He was giving the Israelites the direction that they needed, the leadership that they needed. He was doing well. But then, Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will give the Ammonites into my hands, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering." So does that give red flags to anybody? Maybe. You hear that and you wonder, why would that guy say that? Whatever comes out of the front door of my house. I mean, what did he just live with a bunch of sheep or something, or chickens? I don't know why somebody would even say that, even if he got wrapped up in the moment. But and more importantly than that, did God ask for that vow? Did God expect that vow? Did he even need to give that vow? It's hard to understand what he was thinking. Scott, could you read Matthew 5:33 through 37?
Okay, this is Jesus talking. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made." But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one.
Okay, so that's kind of direction for us. And I know a lot of times in our lives we want to make deals with God when we want something, or we feel God did something for us and now we got to do something for God. But that's not what God's looking for. So Jephthah crossed over to the Amorites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel Carmami, with great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. So now he won the battle. He won the war. God gave it to him. Scott, could you also read James 5:12? It's kind of just reinforces what we've already heard. But
Above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. All you need to say is a simple yes or no. Otherwise, you will be condemned.
okay, so that kind of gives us some direction when we're going through our lives and we're thinking that maybe we should make an arrangement or an agreement with God, or maybe God needs something from us in order for him to do something for us. And God clearly says, don't do that. That's not what vows are about. That's not what the intention is. God owes you nothing. You can give nothing to God. God gives it to you based on his grace. And for some reason, people can't accept that. They always want to give something back or do something back, which is commendable, but it can go bad, like it did here. So that's why he says, don't do that. And sometimes God will give us these stories in the Bible that seem like, really exaggerated or whatever. But I think he gives us the worst case scenario so that we can realize when sometimes the simple things in our lives come up that we can recognize it. We can say, well, it's not the same, but I remember what Jephthah did, And I'm not going to make a deal with God because that would be a sin to do that. I'm just going to let my yes be yes and my no be no, my prayers be my prayers. You don't have to make deals. So, but this is where the story takes a tragic turn. Judges 11:34. Then Jephthah came into his home at Mizpeth, which is Mizpeth right here. He went back home. And behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dance. She was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. So there was a vow that he made. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low. You have been the cause of great trouble to me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." And she said to him, "My father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has avenged you on your enemies, on the Amorites." Scott, could you read Proverbs 20:25?
It is a trap to dedicate something rash, and only later to consider one's vows.
All right, so that's pretty simple, easy to understand. It's a trap to do what Jephthah did, and you can see where he fell into the trap. So 37. So she said to her father, "Let this thing be done for me. Leave me alone for 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountain and weep for my virginity and my companions." Scott, could you read Numbers 32?
When a man makes a vow to the Lord, or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said.
So he said, "Go then." And he sent her away for 2 months. She departed, she and her companions, and wept for her virginity on the mountains. And at the end of the month, she returned to her father, who did to her according to his vow that he had made. She had never known a man, and it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went year by year to laminate the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, 4 days in the year. So now we have a dilemma here. And we're going to work through this next week. We're going to talk about vows. And we're going to talk about can you get out of a vow? And if you have a God that holds you to a vow, and does that then mean that if you make a foolish vow, like you want to sacrifice your daughter to the fire to make a burnt offering to God, does that please God? Is God going to be pleased with that? I think the answer to that, everybody knows, is absolutely not. But we're going to talk about vows. We're going to talk about promises and commitments and how they differ, and exactly what Jephthah could have done, should have done. And we're also going to talk about another theory that theologians have about this, because it's out there, and then you can decide which side you fall on. But I think that it's important that we have a real understanding about vows, what they mean, and what happens if you make a foolish vow. And a lot of people make foolish vows. So does anybody have any questions about tonight? I know there was a lot of, we talked a lot about the real estate here and geography and all that, but it is actually an important part of the story, because Jephthah was trying to explain to the Amorites why they didn't have any right to go to war with them. And it also shows how God then opened up. God closed the pathway to the Israelites to get to the promised land, and then he opened it up again 40 years later. And a lot of people, always wondered why they wandered for 40 years, if they were holding the map upside down or what. But that was the problem. God just said, "Hey, it's not time for you guys to go in yet. You guys don't have the faith, and you don't have the obedience to go into the promised land. So go ahead, Eric.
Hebrews, I guess the last verse of 3 says they didn't do it because of unbelief.
Yep.
That's the sole reason.
Yep. And a lot of people wonder, why did God make them wander for that long, and why did he kill off a whole generation? Because the whole generation was, all they did, they complained. They all wanted to go back to Egypt, and God couldn't do enough for them, couldn't please them, couldn't get them to be obedient, couldn't get them to, all they had to do was come up here. God was going to hand them the Philistines and give them this country over here, but they didn't have the courage to go in and get it. So that's where we're going to end. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, because it's kind of worded differently and confusing. And it was so that the end of 2 months that she returned to her father and carried out his vow, for which he had vowed she knew new man. So he burned her at the stake, right?
Well, I'm not saying he burned her at the stake, but what the Bible tells us is he carried out his vow, and he offered her up as a burnt offering.
Right, okay, but he didn't rape her, right?
No, he didn't rape her.
Oh,
No.
well, it just sounds
I don't know how you got that.
Well, because she knew new man. And
No, it's just saying,
like, what?
okay, yeah, good point to bring up. We'll talk about it. What he said, she knew no man. She was a young woman. She was a virgin, and she knew that she would never have a chance to be married or have children. And so that's why she went up to the mountain to laminate that as she walked with her friends up there. But a lot of people say, why are you more worried about that than your own life? They say, that was me. I'd be, hey, sorry I can't have kids, but, I want to live. So that's one of the questions people have. Why would she go up to laminate the fact that she was a virgin and not go up there laminating the fact that she was about ready to be a burnt offering, which seems to be a little higher on the scale in most people's minds. But, that's the way it is.
I think it's Psalm 122, children are a heritage from the Lord. Happy is the person, the man who has a quiver full of them.
Yeah.
So in the culture, bearing children was being fruitful.
Yeah.
It was achieving your purpose, the very, very purpose God sets here.
And we kind of talked about that last week too, about the concubines and stuff. Why some guys would have concubines, because their only purpose and idea was to bear children for them, because children in that culture were so important. It was such an important part of their culture. So I'm not saying that it wasn't important and she shouldn't have laminated it. I'm just saying when you compare the two, it just seems like one's a little greater than the other. But, that's a different culture, a different time, different people. Anything else? Anybody else? Go ahead, Eric.
I find it interesting, like Noah's wife, Lot's life, her name is never mentioned.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
Her name is never mentioned, like Noah's wife or Lot's wife.
Yeah. Or Jephthah's mother's never mentioned either. That happens. Go ahead, Margot.
We can talk next week about the other theories on that. That might answer the question as to why she was lamenting her virginity compared to her life.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Chuck.
I see the similarities that today there's all this Judea, Samaria, they're saying that territory doesn't belong to Israel. So that's continuing on even today.
Yeah.
Same with Gaza. They say it doesn't belong to Israel when it does.
Yeah, Israel's been fighting over this since they left Kadesh, and they still are to this day. So, the only thing that changes is it's a different year and a different date on the calendar, but the problems are still in existence. Go ahead, Margaret.
Do you know if it's true that Gaza is where the Philistines were then?
Yeah, Gaza. Yeah, the Philistines had this. This end right here says Philistia. The Philistines would have been here down to Gaza and up through here, and the Canaanites had this area here, and the Israelites didn't want to fight with either one of them, because the Philistines were the giants, and the Canaanites were great warriors, and they didn't want to do that. So that's why. Go ahead, Pastor.
I was going to say, you find it interesting that Jephthah loses his inheritance, and he wants to be restored to get it back, and that's one of his bargaining tools, hey, give me back my full inheritance.
Yeah.
Because of his, yeah.
That's one of the things that makes this story such a tragic story, is he had so much going for him, and he was doing so much right until the end when he made a foolish vow. So, all right, anybody want, oh, go ahead, one more.
When you make that vow, I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that to my daughter. Like, you couldn't back out of that? Like, how is that? Like,
Well, we're going to talk about that next week.
okay.
We're going to talk about that next week because yes, there were biblical ways to get out of a foolish vow. And we'll go over that next week. But to answer your question, yes, there are biblical ways to get out of vows. Pastor, you got anything to add?
Well, I was just going to say, when it comes to vows, you have Saul giving a vow that anyone that eats is going to die, and his son Jonathan gets the food. You have Hannah giving a vow to give Samuel, her son, to the Lord. Maybe one of the things we can talk about next week is the idea of the vow was to consecrate it to the Lord, and it was more like a Samuel being set aside, and she wouldn't have kids but would serve the Lord her whole life. Maybe that's one of the things you're talking about.
Right, and also you had the Nazarites. That was a vow that they gave. Samson was a Nazarite, and there were other Nazarites, and Paul talks about he traveled with some young men who had taken the Nazarite vow. So there are vows throughout the Bible, and some of them had purpose, and not all of them were foolish. But we're talking about here was a blatant, foolish vow that it should never have been made, and it was unnecessarily made. And that's the difference sometimes. Does that kind of help your, okay? And like I said, we're going to go over all that next week, and we're going to talk about vows and where we go from here. Ready to close in prayer? All right, we'll close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity that we could all come together and take a look at your word. I just hope that as I presented your word, that it was meaningful, and that people were able to draw something from it to help in their lives and to help them grow closer to you and grow closer relationship with you. And let them take their relationship with you into the world, share it with others, and help others also come to you. I pray this until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen.